Jonathan's fist was already swinging when a small, sharp voice sliced the air. "Shut up." Time slowed inside the busy mall. A ring of shocked shoppers froze with their grocery bags midair. The man Jonathan had just hit. Williams stumbled back, angry and ready to charge again. And there, between two grown men about to fight, stood a thin 12-year-old girl with dust on her cheeks and fierce eyes. That didn't blink. "Shut up," she repeated, pointing straight at Jonathan. "And think your anger will destroy more things. Your wife is going to the airport. If you love your children, stop this fight now." Jonathan's fist fell, his chest heaved. The world started to move again. Security guards running, a crowd whispering, phones recording, but the only thing he could hear was the girl's small, steady voice. There was silence. Then Williams growled, "Who is this child?" The girl didn't flinch. She stared up at the billionaire everyone in Lagos recognized and said, "Decide now." That moment didn't start in the mall. It started 1 hour earlier when the man who kept banks safe from hackers felt his own home break like glass. Johnathan was the CEO of Cybernet, a top cyber security company trusted by banks, government offices, and big firms across Africa and beyond. People called him the firewall of Lagos. Awards lined his office. News shows loved his calm voice and bright ideas. But none of that power could help him when a call came through from his head of security while he pushed a cart toward the candy shelf for his sons, Jerry and Sam. "Hello, sir," the guard said, voice shaking. "Madam has just packed out. She left with the 3 SUVs. She also left with Jerry and Sam. She dropped a letter. She said she's done." Jonathan stopped walking. The mall lights felt too bright. The air turned thin. "Repeat that," he said, softly. "She left, sir, with the boys." The drivers followed her orders. "She said you approved." A pause. "Sir, there's more." His phone buzzed in his other hand. "Alert, alert." Then a flood. Transfers. Company account. Olivia still had access. One after another. The numbers climbed. By the time his eyes could focus, the total was a blow to the chest. 100 million naira gone. The cart rolled away from him and bumped a shelf. He barely felt it. His thoughts jumped and fell like rain on glass. How did he? The man who locks doors for a living leave the door to his life wide open. He tried calling Olivia. The line rang, then stopped. He tried again. Blocked. His heart pounded with a sharp, rising anger. Hot, blinding, reckless. It wasn't just the money. It was the boys. It was the years. It was the old wound he had tried to bury. The day he walked away from Sophia, the woman who believed in him when Cybernet was just a notebook dream. Sophia, the quiet genius, who helped him build the first code. Sophia, whose hands steadied him through long nights. He had left her for Olivia, a pretty stranger he met at a night party. All glitter and fast laughter. He married the spark and set fire to the house he had built. A voice behind him snapped. "Excuse me, move a beg." A man. In a hurry later, he'd know the name. Williams, 30, nudged him hard with a shoulder and pushed past. "You're blocking the way. This is not your living room." Jonathan spun. The red fog rose. Before he could measure the moment, his fist flew. The punch landed. William stumbled, then charged, grabbing Jonathan's collar. The cart crashed. People screamed. A toddler cried. Somewhere a phone clattered on the tiles. "Hey, stop that!" A guard shouted, running. But the voice that stopped Jonathan wasn't the guard's. It was that small, fearless voice again. "Shut up and think of how to solve your problems." The girl was closer now, thin arms, stiff at her sides, chin up. Her clothes were worn and her sandals were old, but her eyes were bright like the first flash of a storm. She stood exactly where neither man wanted her to be. Between them, "Your anger will cause more problems," she said, firm and clear. "Your wife is going to the airport. Think of Jerry and Sam. Think of your money. Fighting here will not help you." Every word hit the true place. Jonathan let go of Williams's shirt. His breath slowed. He looked at the girl and saw something strange, like a mirror of his own fear shining back at him. "I'm sorry," he said, turning to Williams. I was wrong." Williams, chest heaving, blinked. As the fight drained away, he nodded once, confused, still angry, but stepping back. Then Jonathan bent slightly to the girl. We don't have time, he said quietly. Follow me. Where? She asked. The airport. He didn't wait for an answer. He guided her toward the exit, called his security team with his other hand, and snapped into the voice. People obeyed. Lock every company. Channel. Freeze every card Olivia can reach. Get eyes on the house gate, the drivers, everybody. Cross-check flight. Schedules, private and commercial. I'm heading to Matala Muhammad now. Yes. They burst through the sliding doors. Into Lagos heat and noise. Car horns. Hawkers calling out drinks and plantain chips. The bright clash of the city. Never sleeping. Johnathan's car blinked as he pressed the key. She climbed in without fear, as if she had sat in cars like this all her life. As Johnathan pulled into traffic, she turned to him with that same steady look. What's your name? He asked. Eyes on the road. Amara, she said. It means grace. He swallowed. How did you know? About the airport, about everything. She watched. The road lines rush under the car. I can read minds, she said simply. My grandmother had the gift first. She used it to help people in our village. When my parents died in an accident, she raised me. Before she died, too, she told me the gift would grow inside me. It did. When I saw your face, I heard your fear like a loud radio. Your wife, the cars, the money, your boys. I could feel the airport pulling her. I don't know the flight number, but I know that heavy feeling people carry when they plan to run. Johnathan gripped the steering wheel. The road to the airport opened wide and fast. He felt old pain and new fear sit side by side in his chest. Sophia's quiet eyes on the day he left. Olivia's cold smile on the day he signed her access papers. Jerry's laugh when he tasted mango candy. Sam's small hand falling asleep in his palm. If what you've said is true, he said, voice low, I will change your life. Amara looked out the window at the sky over Ikeda. I don't need big promises, she said. I just don't want you to make a big mistake. He glanced at her, surprised by the calm in her voice. She was a child, thin and tired, but she spoke like someone who had learned to stand in storms without a roof. His phone buzzed again. Sir, the security lead said, we have a ping. One of the SUV trackers shows a stop near the international wing. We're rerouting. Assets estimated 2 minutes behind you. Copy, Johnathan said. Keep the line open. Traffic thickened near the airport, but the guards at the gate recognized the face they'd seen on TV. And in boardrooms, his fame opened a way where there was no way. They waved him through with urgent hands. He parked fast and jumped out. Stay close, he told Amara. They moved through the bright halls of Murtala Muhammad International Airport. The cool air smelled like coffee and jet fuel. Families hugged, suitcases rolled, loudspeakers called names. Johnathan scanned the crowd with a hunter's focus. It felt like trying to find one raindrop in a storm. Departures, Amara said, tugging his sleeve. Left, they turned. And then there, a headscarf he knew, a walk he had memorized. Olivia, she was. By the rope line, 2 boys at her side. Jerry trying to act brave. Sam clutching a small backpack. 3 drivers hovered behind them like shadows. Olivia's face was calm, almost bored. The way it looked when she decided to take what she wanted and dare the world to stop her. Stop right there. Johnathan's voice cracked across the hall. Olivia turned. For the first time that day, her mask slipped. Shock widened her eyes. She hadn't figured on Amara. She hadn't figured on a little girl who could hear a man's mind breaking and turn him toward the door that mattered. Security shifted, ready, travelers slowed. Watching. The boys looked up, hope flashing like lightning. Sir, came the whisper from the phone still in Johnathan's hand. Our team is at the outer gate. Do you want us to move in? Johnathan didn't answer yet. His eyes were on Olivia. The war would begin with whatever came out of her mouth next. Amara stood beside him, small but unshaken. He felt without looking down. Her fingers curl into a fist. The way people brace when a storm hits shore. Olivia's lips parted. The line to the gate beeped. Somewhere behind them, a boarding call rang out. And then Olivia smiled, a cold, shiny smile that had once pulled him out of his own good sense. What will you do, Johnathan? She asked softly. In front of all these people, the loudspeaker clicked. A gate. Number changed. Jerry squeezed Sam's hand. Johnathan took one step forward and an unformed officer stepped into the space between them, palm up, eyes hard. Sir, Madam, we need to clarify a report regarding stolen property and a family dispute. Everyone will come with us now. The moment split like thunder. The walk from the airport gate to the security office felt longer than any road Johnathan had ever taken. Olivia kept her chin high, but the color in her face had drained. The boys were silent, their small shoes tapping against the polished tiles. Amara stayed close to Johnathan's side, quiet but watchful, her eyes darting between the officers and Olivia. Inside the airport's private security room, the air smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. 2 officers stood by the door while another took statements. Johnathan's security chief arrived minutes later, crisp in a dark suit, carrying a folder that seemed too heavy for its size. Sir, he said quietly, handing it to Johnathan, these are the transfer records, exact amounts, times, and the accounts they went to. Also, witness statements from your drivers and household staff. Everything matches your wife's movements today. Johnathan opened the folder. Each line on the transfer record was a wound. Dates, times, amounts, 100 million naira siphoned away in less than 30 minutes. His company, seal, his authorization codes, all twisted against him. Olivia crossed her arms, leaning back in her chair. You think this proves anything? That money belongs to me, too. We're married. Johnathan's voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. Married doesn't mean licensed to steal. You planned this, Olivia. You didn't just take the money. You took my sons. They're not your sons. The room went silent. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to pause. Johnathan blinked, his brain struggling to process the words. What did you just say? Olivia leaned forward, her smile sharp. Jerry and Sam. They're mine. Yes, but not yours. You were too busy chasing contracts and playing the big man to notice. The officer at the table shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we'll need to move this to the magistrate's court immediately. There are serious accusations on both sides. By noon the next day, the court was packed. News had spread. Cybernet CEO's wife accused of fraud and theft, and the hallways buzzed with reporters and curious onlookers. Cameras flashed as Johnathan entered, flanked by his lawyer and Amara trailing closely behind. She wore a simple, clean dress the security chief had bought her that morning, but her eyes still carried the sharpness of the day before. Inside, Olivia sat at the defendant's table in an elegant blue gown, her makeup flawless, as if this was another high-profile event instead of a fraud trial. Jerry and Sam were not with her. They had been placed temporarily with child services until the court could decide. The magistrate, a stern woman, with glasses perched low on her nose, opened the proceedings. We are here to hear charges against Mrs. Olivia Amara for marital fraud, financial fraud, and unauthorized sale of properties not in her name. Johnathan's lawyer presented the evidence, bank transfers, witness statements, sales contracts. Each document felt like a nail in the coffin of his marriage. Olivia's lawyer tried to counter, claiming joint ownership and emotional distress, but the magistrate's face remained unreadable. Then came the turning point. Mrs. Mecca, the magistrate said, the plaintiff requests sole custody of the children pending this case's outcome. Do you contest this? Olivia smiled, that same cold smile from the airport. Yes, because they're not his children. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Johnathan's lawyer immediately requested a DNA test. The magistrate agreed, ordering the test to be expedited. The results came back the next day. When the clerk read them aloud, Johnathan felt his knees weaken. The probability of paternity 0%. It was as if the walls closed in. He sat down heavily, the weight of betrayal pressing him into the chair. His hands covered his face, and for the first time in years, he cried in public. He didn't care about the cameras now. He had built an empire, defended nations' wealth, but had failed to guard his own home. I left Sophia for you, he whispered. Not to Olivia, but to himself. And this is my punishment. Olivia showed no remorse. The magistrate's voice cut through the heavy air. Mrs. Amara, you are hereby ordered to return all stolen funds, vehicles, and any proceeds from unauthorized sales. Failure to comply will result in a prison sentence. Custody matters will be handled separately given the paternity results. Olivia agreed to return the assets, perhaps to avoid prison, but her eyes held a defiant glint. As the hearing adjourned, Johnathan felt a gentle tug at his sleeve. Amara looked up at him. "Why not go back to Sophia?" she said softly. He stared at her, stunned. "How? Do you?" "I can feel it," she said, her voice calm but certain. "She still loves you. She just left her husband last week. They couldn't have children. She's alone." Jonathan's heart pounded. This girl, who had appeared out of nowhere, seemed to see straight into the places he had hidden from everyone. He made a decision right there. That evening, Johnathan dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "Sophia, can we meet? Please?" She hesitated, but then agreed. They chose the popular night garden inn, Lecky, a place where city lights reflected on quiet water. When they met, neither spoke for a long moment. Then, the tears came, years of pain and regret washing over both of them. Johnathan knelt, his voice breaking as he told her about Olivia's betrayal, the stolen money, the truth about Jerry and Sam. He introduced Amara, the girl who had stopped him from throwing away the last chance at something good. Sophia listened, her eyes never leaving his. Then she reached for his hand. In that moment, under the soft glow of the garden lights, something began again. Not from where it left off, but from a place deeper and stronger. But neither of them knew that Amara's presence in their lives was about to change far more than they imagined. 1 month later, the world of Johnathan Amcha looked nothing like the wreckage it had been at the airport. The newspapers had moved on to new scandals. But within Jonathan's circle, the changes were seismic. Olivia had returned the 100 million naira, the 3 SUVs, and even refunded the estate she had sold without his consent. Her lawyers had advised her to vanish from Lagos society, and she had obeyed, disappearing like a shadow at sunrise. Sophia, meanwhile, had stepped quietly but firmly back into Jonathan's life, not as a trophy or a business prop, but as an equal. She returned to Cybernet, taking up the role of Chief Technology Officer. Within weeks, her presence was felt across every department. The company's systems were tighter, faster, and more secure than they had been in years. Clients noticed new contracts poured in. And then there was Amara. For the first time in years, the little girl slept in a real bed. She had her own room in Jonathan's home, a space painted a soft peach color with a bookshelf full of new novels, a desk where she kept a second-hand laptop Sophia had insisted on buying her, and a window that let the morning sun warm her face before breakfast. She still wore the same look of quiet awareness, as if she was always listening to something others couldn't hear. But now she also laughed, real bubbling laughter that caught Johnathan off guard the first time he heard it. It was Sophia who suggested the wedding be small and private, attended only by family and close friends. After everything, she told Johnathan, we don't need the whole city watching. This is ours. Johnathan agreed. It was a clear Lagos afternoon, when they stood under the simple white canopy in the garden of Sophia's sister's house. There were no gold-plated decorations or celebrity photographers, just the people who had weathered the storms with them. Amara was the flower girl. She wore a pale yellow dress that swayed as she walked down the aisle, tossing petals with a calm focus, her eyes darting once toward Johnathan as if to say, I told you she still loved you. When the officiant asked Johnathan to speak, his voice cracked. I once thought building a company was my greatest achievement, he said, looking at Sophia. But standing here today, I know it's having the chance to make things right. Sophia's hand squeezed his. We don't erase the past, she replied. We build on it. Stronger this time. The guests clapped softly, and when the kiss came, it wasn't dramatic. It was steady, sure, and quiet. The kind of love that doesn't need to prove itself to anyone. A year later, joy returned to their home in a way neither expected. Sophia gave birth to twin girls, Amaka and Amanda. Both healthy with tiny hands that gripped Jonathan's fingers as if they had known him forever. He held them with the same care he once reserved for delicate hard drives in Cybernet server rooms. Life settled into a rhythm. Sophia managed major tech projects. Johnathan traveled less, preferring evenings at home. Amara thrived in school, her natural intelligence catching the attention of her teachers. By the time she finished secondary school, she had her eyes set on data science. You're already halfway there, Johnathan teased one evening, watching her solve a complex coding puzzle. faster than some of his junior analysts. You've been reading my mind. For years. Amara smiled. Reading minds is one thing. Reading data is harder. Data lies if you don't know what you're looking for. 4 years later, she graduated at the top of her class, walking across the stage in her gown as Johnathan, Sophia, and her twin sisters watched from the front row. The moment the degree was in her hand, Johnathan announced to the company board that Amara would be Cybernet's new head of data analytics. She stepped into the role like she had been born for it. Her innovations in data tracking and fraud detection brought in international clients, including a European bank that signed a multi-million-dollar contract. But life wasn't just work. During a tech conference in Lagos, Amara met Nnamdi Okoro, a sharp and humble software engineer, with a laugh that made her cheeks warm. They spoke for hours about machine learning and AI ethics. And when the event ended, he asked if he could see her again. 3 months later, they were engaged. The wedding was bigger than Johnathan's second one, but not by much, just enough to fit their growing circle of friends and family. Amaka and Amanda, now 16, wore matching lilac dresses and stood proudly as bridesmaids. As Johnathan walked Amara down the aisle, he found his vision blurring. "This is the second time I've walked you towards something good," he whispered. "First was when you led me out of a fight, and toward the truth." Amara smiled up at him, "And you kept your promise. You changed my life." When she reached Nnamdi, she turned back once just for a moment, and Johnathan knew she was silently thanking him too. Years moved. In quiet, steady waves. Amara and Amanda graduated from the University of Abuja with degrees in software engineering, both securing jobs at a major international tech firm. 1 year later, their lives took another joyful turn. Amaka met Johnson, a tall, easygoing accountant at an oil company. Amanda met James, another accountant at the same firm, serious but kind. Somehow, the sisters managed to fall in love at the same time and plan their weddings together. It was a day of double joy. The twins walked in side by side, each holding their father's arm, both radiant in their wedding gowns. Sophia sat in the front row, tears streaming freely, while Amara, now heavily involved in Cybernet, stood with Nnamdi, her eyes shining. That night, Johnathan sat quietly after the last guest had left, watching the empty dance floor. His life had been rebuilt from the ruins, and the cornerstone had been a moment in a mall when a dusty little girl told him to shut up. Yet not. Everything was perfect. 5 years after her marriage, Amara still hadn't been able to have a child. She had seen specialists, prayed, and even traveled abroad for treatment. But every test came back the same. It wasn't impossible, but no one could say why it hadn't happened yet. Sometimes Johnathan would hear her crying softly in the guest room late at night. She could read the thoughts of strangers solve impossible problems for clients. But when it came to her own womb, she could not see past the silence. One evening, she sat in the garden alone, her hands folded in her lap. Johnathan joined her, saying nothing at first. "When the time is right," he said finally, "it will happen. Until then, you're already a mother in more ways than you know." Amara didn't answer, but she leaned her head on his shoulder, and for a long time, they just sat there under the Lagos night sky, listening to the city breathe. Neither of them knew that the next twist in their lives was already on its way. It began on an ordinary Saturday morning. The sun was already high over Lagos, casting a golden glow over the bustling streets. Johnathan had driven Sophia to an early client meeting, and Amara had decided to walk through Balogun Market to pick up fabric for a surprise gift she was making for her sisters. Balogun was alive in the way only Lagos markets could be. Rows of stalls overflowing with bright anchor prints, the air thick with the smell of roasted corn and fried plantain, and the shouts of traders advertising their wares. Amara was through the crowd, her mind half focused on patterns and colors. Then she felt it, the hum. It was a feeling she knew well, like a low radio signal, faint but steady, brushing against the edge of her thoughts. Her gift had been quiet for weeks, but now it was pushing at her as if trying to get her attention. She slowed, scanning faces, trying to find the source. A woman in a faded blue wrapper caught her eye. She was speaking quickly to a man in a dark cap, her voice urgent. In her mind's ear, Amara heard fragments, not words exactly, but feelings, fear, pressure, and something about a deal. Then she heard it clearly, an image, forming in her thoughts as if someone had dropped a photograph into her mind. It was Johnathan sitting in his office, his company's servers flashing red with warning signs, and then a shadow. Someone inside Cybernet trying to steal confidential banking data worth billions. Amara's heart raced. She didn't know who the woman was, but she knew the threat was real. She stepped closer. "Excuse me," she said softly. The woman turned startled. "Yes, you don't know me," Amara said, her tone calm but firm. "But if you go through with what you're planning, you'll destroy more lives than you realize. Walk away now." The man in the cap frowned. "Who are you?" Amara met his gaze. "Someone who hears things before they happen." The woman's eyes widened. Her lips trembled. Without another word, she grabbed the man's arm and pulled him away, disappearing into the crowd. By the time Amara reached Cybernet's headquarters that afternoon, her pulse hadn't slowed. She went straight to Johnathan's office. He was leaning over a table with Sophia, reviewing a contract. "Amara, you're supposed to be enjoying your weekend." She closed the door. "We have a problem. A big one." They listened in silence as she described what she had sensed. Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying there's an inside threat?" "Yes," Amara said. "And soon. I don't know the exact time, but it's close. You need to check everyone with high-level access today." Johnathan didn't hesitate. "Sophia, lock down all sensitive accounts. Amara, stay with me." Within hours, a quiet investigation uncovered the truth. One of Cybernet's mid-level managers had been bribed by an international hacking group to steal encryption keys. The manager had been covering his tracks for weeks, but with Sophia's security protocols and Amara's uncanny lead, they caught him before he could transmit the data. It was a win, but it came with a cost. The manager had been part of the company for nearly 10 years. His betrayal shook the staff, and for Amara, it was a reminder that her gift would never truly let her live an ordinary life. That night, Johnathan invited her to the balcony of his home, where the city lights glittered in the distance. "You saved us again," he said. Amara shook her head. "I just heard what I was meant to hear." Johnathan studied her. "Maybe, but you keep showing up at the exact moments that matter most. I used to think Cybernet was my legacy. Now I think it might be you." Her eyes softened. "If I'm your legacy, then I hope it's because of who I am, not just what I can do." Johnathan smiled faintly. "It's both, Amara. Always both." For a long time, they stood there without speaking, the cities hum below them, and a quiet understanding between them. Amara didn't say it aloud, but she knew this wasn't the last time her gift would pull her into something dangerous. And deep down, she feared the next call would come from somewhere far closer to home. The next call came on a rainy Thursday night. Amara had been sitting in her living room, the soft drum of rain against the windows making her feel almost peaceful. Nambi was working late, and she'd been reading a new book on predictive analytics. Then, without warning, the familiar humate. It was loud, insistent, like someone pounding on a door inside her mind. Images began to flash. A hospital room, bathed in harsh white light. Sophia sitting in a chair, her face pale. Johnathan lying in a bed, tubes running from his arms, monitors beeping frantically. Amara gasped, dropping the book. The hum sharpened, and a single word rang in her mind. "Hurry!" She didn't stop to think. She grabbed her keys, threw on a jacket, and drove through the rain. When she reached the hospital, she ran down the corridor to the private wing. Sophia was there, her hands clasped tightly, eyes red from crying. "What happened?" Amara asked. Sophia stood quickly. "It's his heart. He collapsed in the office this evening. The doctors say it's serious. They need to operate, but there are risks." Amara's breath caught. "Can I see him?" Sophia nodded, leading her into the room. Johnathan lay still, his skin pale, against the crisp sheets. The man who had once seemed unshakable now looked fragile, almost small. When Amara took his hand, the hum in her head shifted. It became quieter, more focused. She felt his fear, his memories, his love for Sophia, his pride in Amaka and Amanda, and his deep, unspoken gratitude for her. "You can't leave yet," she whispered. "You still have more to do." His eyelids fluttered. "Amara, I'm here. You've been my second chance. Promise me, whatever happens, you'll keep Sophia." Safe. And the girls, her throat tightened. Nothing's going to happen. You're going to fight. You taught me not to give up. A doctor appeared in the doorway. It's time. Hours passed in a blur. Amara sat with Sophia in the waiting room, her gift quiet now, leaving her alone with her own thoughts. Rain streaked the windows, and the clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. When the doors finally opened, the surgeon stepped out. He's stable. The operation went well. He'll need time to recover, but he's going to be fine. Sophia's knees gave way, and she sank into a chair, covering her face. Amara felt relief flood her so strongly, it brought tears to her eyes. Johnathan's recovery was slow, but steady. Within weeks, he was back home, and the family gathered more often than ever. The twins visited every weekend, their laughter filling the rooms. One afternoon, while sitting on the ver, Johnathan called Amara over. "You've given me more than I could ever give back," he said. "From the day you told me to shut up in that mall, you've been changing my life. I want you to know whatever path you take, you'll always have a home here." Amara smiled, but there was something else she needed to say. "Johnathan, I think I'm ready to face the one thing I've been avoiding." He raised an eyebrow. "Your own heart." She nodded. "My gift has helped everyone. But me. I want to understand why I can't have children. Not just for me, but because I need to know if there's something I'm not seeing." He didn't argue. "Then we'll face it together." Months of tests followed. Local specialists, overseas consultations, every modern method available. In the end, the answer was clear but difficult. There was no medical reason she couldn't conceive. Sometimes the doctors said, nature just took its time. At first, Amara felt crushed. But slowly she began to see it differently. If there was no barrier, then hope still lived. 2 years later, that hope became reality. It was Sophia who guessed first. Amara had been quieter than usual, and one afternoon she found her in the kitchen, holding a small test strip with tears in her eyes. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The news spread through the family like light breaking through clouds. Johnathan laughed until tears rolled down his cheeks. "See, right time, like I told you." 9 months later, Amara gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Grace after the meaning of her own name, because as she told Namdi, Grace had carried her through every chapter of her life. On Grace's first birthday, the family gathered at the garden in Lekki, where Johnathan and Sophia had reunited years earlier. Amaka and Amanda brought their sons. Sophia held Grace, and Johnathan stood watching them all with quiet pride. At one point, Grace toddled toward him, her tiny hands reaching up. He bent down, lifting her into his arms, and felt the same surge of gratitude he had the day Amara walked into his life. "You saved me once," he told her softly. "Now you've saved me again." The rain began to fall lightly, warm and gentle, but no one moved inside. They stayed there together, the sound of laughter and the smell of wet earth wrapping around them like a promise. Johnathan knew the storms in life would always come, but he also knew as long as they faced them together, they would always find their way back to the light. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.